With an item rework comes the ability for you to do things you've never done before. Yes, that means mages can become tanks, supportive junglers can become carries, assassins become fighters, and fighters become whatever the hell they want to be. And so in this video, I will be giving you the best builds you should be playing with the new itemization in Split 3 of Season 14, so that you can carry from the jungle no matter what you play. Right, let's start off with a very simple one, and then we'll get into the really good spicy stuff as we get into the video. The first one obviously is Elise. Now, she had those really good buffs, those quality of life changes that allowed her to basically feel more modern in design. Flash interaction with her E, some buffs to her passive to make it easier to use, ultimate cooldown. But when you think about the items that were nerfed around each other, Storm Surge, having just been buffed, now remains at that same strength while everything else around it was kind of nerfed. But most importantly for Elise, having your form swapping up a second sooner, having the ability to amplify your passive all the time, and having the ability to lock people down means you have almost a guaranteed level of damage with a lot of HP running around, and guess what Elise has? A missing HP execute. In her human form, the current HP point and click Q, and thus penetration is absolutely the best way to go. Now, a lot of people still love Village Bane. They love to go into things like your Zhonya's and your Shadow Flames, and the best way to play her right now is with this build here. We love the Storm Surge, we love the Shadow Flame, and we really enjoy going into a Death Cap or a Zhonya's. Now, obviously, Zhonya's makes a lot more sense, third. Give yourself that survivability against other champions, but the flat penetration from the boots is absolutely nutty. The penetration from the Storm Surge plus the Shadow Flame, you're looking at a one-shot dominatrix build. Now, you might think this will change because of the Storm Surge nerfs next patch, but these will be subtle, and it won't change the actual reason you do this. A hell of a lot of penetration, and if you actually get your two items quickly enough, remember that 6k gold by 14 minutes, that's really what you want. Tanks cannot build resistances in time to stop you, and magic resistance down across the board. Squishies won't be able to build resistance fast enough either because they'll be dead, and the way you make picks equals GG everybody. Shadow Flame also gives you that nice execute damage on every damage unit you do, which again also enhances the fact that you're gonna form swat, go into Smiter form Q, and missing HP execute. This is the build to snowball, to win, to carry, to climb. And the best way is always to go through Virkayu.gg. Not only do I have a free jungle improvement resource, I also have a dedicated program with jungle video courses, jungle coaching classes, a jungle VOD library, special weekly content you'll see nowhere else. All of this available through a premium jungle Discord, which is highly active, a huge community that help each other climb using my jungle program and courses. As we have seen by everybody hitting their peak rank goals in Split 1 and Split 2 of Season 14 as fast as possible. So to climb faster than everybody you know and to jungle diff every game you play, head to Virkayu.gg or click the link in the description below. Alright, let's just jump into the off-meta pick that shouldn't really be off-meta because I've now faced this I think like 6 or 7 times already this split, and it is absolutely ridiculously strong. Teemo jungle has become a bit of a niche pick. It's under the radar. With this video, I hope to make it, not under the radar so we can all get it nerfed and destroyed. I mean, play it and climb. Yes, that's what I meant to say. Play it and climb. The reason why the pick is good is because your clears are overall very healthy since your Q blind duration is doubled on jungle camps. Your clear spikes harder after one item and gives you more control over the map than you would actually think. This isn't your Teemo jungle from 5 years ago. You can actually sequence pretty damn well. This is especially true when you can use your shrooms in both a defensive or offensive way, depending on whether you put the shrooms in your jungle to protect against counter jungling, or you leave it behind when you are counter jungling in the enemy's jungle. Not to mention the fact that before an objective spawns, you can basically add Teemo to the most horrible traps of the Vietnam War for the enemy. This makes them lose more than half of their HP basically, and makes them unable to contest any objective afterwards. And it helps you do the objective faster, so there you go. The build we've been talking about here is the PTA build. It's more auto attack reliant. It's really good as a default if you want to auto attack more frequently into the enemy comp, you want to use those blinds, you want to be a little bit more of that sort of ADC range jungle, except if you had all of the diseases on the planet at once and then gave it to the enemy jungler. The R and everything we said is still very potent in that build. However, this one here with Dark Harvest does give your R a little bit more extra juice. Should you be the teamer that doesn't want to run into the enemy jungle, doesn't want to use that auto attack range as much, but instead wants to lay generational trauma on the enemy jungler around the map and around everybody around the map, then of course do this. Go for the more explodey build atomization, and trust me, the junglers against you, even when the clear nerfs come through on the Leandry, it's not going to change anything, will be absolutely outrageous. Go on, my friends. spread your demons. Alright, remember, Blue Kayn and Red Kayn have struggled a little bit this season on and off, but overall the champion's been A or S tier, really great to play with. The problem has been people's itemization has not been good. Here you go, here's a juice for the Blue Kayn. Red Kayn is basically the standard stuff. What we're going to do here is try and bounce up our itemization a little bit with the nerfs to haste and damage across the board. Start with opportunity. Get that upfront damage, get the ability to actually go all in and make it impact that one item. Remember, one item spikes have gone down for most champions. This means you need to be intelligent about how you play around that and which items you choose at 1, 2, and 3. Remember, Ionian boots have been nerfed in terms of the haste, but they're really cheap. They give you that movement speed edge, and if you're a hypermobile champion like Kayn, very few champions can actually deal with you, if any. That's why we like to build in a volley and such things. And much like the next champion we're going to talk about, Axiom Arc is something that really provides that extra ability to get in and out of all these fights as fast as possible. With fights going on longer, with fights taking more time, you want your ultimate up way more often, and you want to be able to do a hell of a lot of damage with it. So you take the opportunity for the upfront, take the Axiom up for the accessibility, take the Ionian boots for the rotations, and then you go Grudge for destruction and penetration. Naturally, you can finish this off with a good old-fashioned GA or Edge of Night or Serpent as necessary. I always like the Edge of Night. I think you must go this way more than people think because it basically makes you unstoppable against champions that could CC you. In terms of runes, I do apologize, nothing Omega spicy here, just really the best way to go is a default way in these cases. That's really the biggest lesson we can kind of talk about here. Now, you know me always telling you to build the regular Stride Breaker way of playing Nocturne. This is still the best way to go. But the build you see on your screen now is being used by some high elo Nocturne players in the same way we kind of like to think about the Elise. You want more HP, you want to be able to survive a little bit more in those engages. You have to ask yourself, do I really want to accomplish that kind of slower pace player on my ultimate farming mechanism? Or do you want to go for the burst reliant and R reliant build? Now this comes with terms and conditions. I am not liable for how many times you die and how many games you lose. You have to understand it's a snowbally build. It will pop people like a balloon very quickly. Instead of being a clay pigeon that is absolutely useless, you will be one of the latest generation of rockets from the year 2075. The reason why you go Serpent's Fang in this build, and you're looking at this thinking, wait, is he really saying Axiom Arc, Edge of Night, and Serpent's Fang? Yes, the high elo jungler we found doing this, it's because of the ADCs having barrier every single game. You pair up these items and not only can you not be CC'd when you're flying in, not only are you going to fly in very frequently like a commercial flight that is actually in time for once, but you will also be one of the few people that can actually nullify to a certain degree the barrier. And we all agree that that summoner's spell needs to go back into the grave. Seeing anybody survive that long, that often with that shield, horrible. At least now, you get way more value out of it. After this, it's a little bit speculative. You can go into BF Sword itemization, you can go more for the Grudge, you can go into the, Guardian Angel to survive, you can go more for Mortius for anti-burst. There's a few things you can go afterwards, it's really dynamic. The idea is just get 3 items, end the game. Get 3 items, kill the squishies. If the enemy comp has a lot of tanks and fighters, yeah, obviously don't do this, but you can in theory use this whenever there are those Karmas and those Jins and those Hueys and the Kha'Zixes. As always, the best builds do have dynamic itemization components, meaning you're not going to always go every game, but you have the option to use it when it's maximized. And now most of you actually like playing Shyvana because she's really easy to pilot, you can farm, we've even seen her on the world stage so far, and the farming and the fighting is pretty good. Now, listen up. They're going to be nerfing her ultimate AP ratio. Finally, they're going to try and restrict the amount of AP nuke bombs she can throw. They're also nerfing Leandries. So why not get ahead of these changes and go this build? Titanic, Iceborne Gauntlet, and of course the Zecani Grukern. This is not a build that is seen anywhere else apart from Korea. However, it might be meta in the upcoming weeks due to the Leandries and the Shyvana nerfs as I mentioned. You basically play an AD version of Shyvana, but instead you also go tankier, and you jump into that lethal tempo mega on-hit attack speed build. This makes you a better frontliner. You actually become a dragon that wants to go in. You actually become something that really embodies the sense of I'm gonna go in, never die and kill you. The AP builds, the hybrid builds, they don't have that luxury, and mispositioning does cost you. See, here the DPS is the most important, and that's why we like the lethal tempo. It's a better choice. Fleet gives you healing and allows you to run around a little bit faster, but I'm not going anywhere here. I want that 30% attack speed steroid. I want that bonus adaptive damage on hit, but also then think about Titanic. It might be the only offensive item in the build, but considering the fact this item gets better the more HP you have, and all of that AD applies to all of your auto attacks and spells, and if you're amping up your attack speed, you want those attacks to hit harder, there you go. You also have the Shyvana key which procs Titanic Hydra multiple times, the lethal temper reduces that Q CDR as well, and Legend Haste does the same thing. You will have the Q ability way more frequently than you would ever imagine. This is a tower shredding, teamfight dominating, split push optional, mega never die Shyvana build, and it's going to be the way the meta will go in the future. That is my prediction. Well, for her, of course, but just please remember, ladies and gentlemen, you must max Q in this particular case, not E, not W. Max a Q, use a Q, kill with a Q. No, hold on, Nunu and Willem, this is a good one. This is actually something that's really interesting. I think a lot of you should think about. You know me on this channel, I hate that AP Nuke Blaster, zero skill Nunu build. I much prefer the intelligent Nunu builds that use a dynamic kit that helps teammates win the game by actually, being in a supportive tank that does its own thing a little bit and has some carry potential. And now you look at it and you think, well, Leandries, Deadman's, Abyssal Mask, Phase Rush, Lucidity Boots. But that's a Hex Flash. Did you notice that? Look at the Hex Flash. The reason why you take Deadman second in this particular case is because of that synergy between the item, Nimbus Cloak, and Hex Flash. Very few times in these kinds of videos do you have a synergy between two runes and an item and a champion. It's really a hugely powerful combination, and if you find a champion that has that, it is my obligation to present it to you. This is how it works. Because the Nimbus Cloak adjustments are making movement speed decay over a few seconds rather than being a flat burst of movement speed, and again they're buffing it next patch for some particular reason, or they have buffed it if you're watching it in the future, if you time the release of your Hex Flash with the Snowball W, you can often get around 100 to 200 bonus movement speed during rolling of the snowball down the rift. And that English was atrocious. You know why? Because I'm just imagining going Mark 356. Treat Hex Flash like you treat a Scuttle Crab for Nunu and Willem, but instead of having to have the Scuttle Crab, you can use it wherever the hell you want, with a Deadman's, with a Nimbus Cloak, without a Scuttle Crab. It doesn't matter. You are coming into a lane with immense speed. Now, I have had cookies in the jungle when I'm playing Kai'Sa jungle because I'm playing Kai'Sa jungle, and apparently I hate myself that much. But in the case of Nunu and Willem, it isn't actually that odd here, because the reason why you take them is to not really benefit from the healing you get the lower HP you are, nor because you want to use them during combat. Please don't do that. Well, I mean, you can if you want. But it's because each biscuit gives you 30 flat health added to your HP pool permanently. Considering the fact that you use the first biscuit at 2 minutes, you can instantly use them to have better pet damage during your first clear. Think about that. In theory, this helps you clear the camps much quicker than anyone would expect. You no longer have to be an absolute raging psycho destroying the sanctity of League of Legends with your ridiculous builds, no farming and only ganking, and let's face it, just straight up minting. But now, after consuming all the biscuits, and this will happen at around 6 minutes, you will have 90 flat health added to your HP pool, which doesn't sound like much, but on a champion like Nunu and Willem that doesn't have good HP scaling stats, making one of them less squishier while you build Leandries, it really helps your early game a lot. It helps you actually survive and play fights a little bit better, which means you get more of the tanky items you want. This allows you to peel for your carries better. It's a snowballing tank heaven build. And again, don't worry about the Leandries nerf and things like that. This item is still going to be absolutely great on him, but you do have alternatives like the Cosmic. The idea really is just that Deadman's plus these rune sets equals fun. It equals fun. Alright, and very quickly, a lot of you are basically going tank bear. I saved the bear a couple years ago when he was terrible, and I came up with the Trinity Force Titanic Hydra Frozen Heart build. Now I'm here to tell you, please stop going full tank. It's boring and uninspired. Instead, go Shojin into the new buffed Iceborne. The extra HP equals way more stats. Volibear heals and enjoys doing damage based upon the HP he has. He's the best Sheen-based user in the game with that W, and obviously Shojin gives you way more ability haste cooldown, basically amplifying the Navuri build, but first item. Allows you to actually get more W's off, more E's off, more Q's off, and you become a bit of an unkillable monster even at 2 items. Following the armor of Iceborne Gauntlet, then we go Spirit Visage for the mega healing. And you might think, well, what about the runes? Why do they look so standard? Don't you usually come up with weird-ass secondary pages? I do have my technology and I do have my experimentation, but honestly, I just think you should keep it simple. Get your movement speed proc, get your water walking. You might want to try the new Nimbus Cloak, but I don't really think that's necessary in this particular case. But what this build does is it gives you HP, resistances, Sheen procs, damage spikes, rotations, and you are still very, very tanky and have that sustain in fights. It is by far the most fun I've had playing the bear in the current state. Easy snowball, easy map control, easy teamfight domination. There are of course other ways to play him, other variations you can go, but in terms of first items, I don't think you're going to find a better win rate, even at low sample size, than the Shojin, and this is a way for you to be a very, very angry and demonic Winnie the Pooh. And now these next two champs are about removing fun from the game, but for the enemy, so if you enjoy distributing pain, pay attention. The Fiddlesticks build here is about going First Strike, Blackfire Torch, Leandries, and Abyssal Mask, and then obviously you can go into sort of Death Cap or whatever. The thing is, Fiddlesticks is really good at applying debuffs and tick burns, especially with this build. Since he is often really close to the enemy and the need to get his sucky McSuck on, Abyssal Mask is literally always applied no matter what. Isn't that just lovely? Since this build makes him tankier than the other builds obviously, he can sustain and survive more in fights, but also manage to outlive the enemy in dire situations. Hence why we take Triumph, because, you know, healing and survivability. And you might think Coup is a weird thing to go here, but it helps you execute the enemies better as your W deals more damage with missing HP. For some reason people forget that. W deals more damage based upon missing HP, and also heals you more based upon the damage you deal. But the rune sets that Fiddle goes very rarely allow this combination. In this situation, you want to get rich, and you don't want to die trying, and then you just want to live longer, because the build and the rune set enhances both the healing and the damage at the same time. And again, don't worry about any nerfs to these things. These are staple items. They're just being removed basically for the carcasses of the crowd. For the Fiddle here, this is still going to be absolutely juiced, jazzed, and jizz. Finally, we have Ivern the Tree, and if you are absolutely damn sick of your teammates and your ADCs being absolute gargoyles in the head, an apology to Galio mains who actually have the brains and play like Faker, but you gotta go with the full AP Ivern. Again, this is something we have talked about a little bit, but remember, now we are looking at these new Lichbane items. We're looking at the new Malignance itemization. We have the expensive but very powerful Death Cap. We have the new Shadow Flame. Lichbane is the one here that works really well with Ivern since Daisy applies on hit. Whenever he uses a bush, he gets the Lichbane passive proc and the bonus damage on hit from the W onto Daisy's auto attacks. You don't necessarily go full AP to have better shields, you more so rely on the shield proc on your E and then kind of using those auto attacks. You still go airy, much like in this next build, but it's a little bit less reliant on the Lichbane and instead more on your spamming of the shields, as is the way to get that damage proc off. The build consists of having more haste than the other builds, and basically all the other champions, and the Shurelli's reason here is it's just relatively cheap as a first item. It's a great power spike for Ivern, helps you get around the map faster than everybody else, truly being the jungle Janna we all know the tree is. And thus, while Maokai is basically, his data suggests that he's being used for the fuel of Isengard, the orcs absolutely having the time of their lives around the smell of his burning bark, the Ivern is basically Treebeard. Weird shift, makes sense though. Now to use these builds, to use these champions like the boss you want to be, you have to understand how to manipulate the jungle at your will. Click the video to become the absolute master of jungle puppet.